Alright guys, Doozer shop here. I was out here late last night working on the switch for the Colchester, the start switch, and I probably have the most Colchester 17-inch lathe videos on YouTube because this thing is a lot of stuff either wrong with it or needs improving. But I'll show you this switch and what I was working on. Let me go handheld and I'll take you around and I'll show you why I had to modify this switch and get everything the way it needed to be. So here we go. So this is the switch in question. Let me take you to the lathe first and show you. I don't trip on stuff. Always a problem. Alright, that looks like a mess. Now, so this is not hooked up, so it's going to flop down. Normally, that's the drum switch, so that's going to just fall because I have it unhooked. So, this is the brake switch, the main switch and the brake lever. So that's off. That's on. Okay, that's to start the lathe up. That's to turn the motor off, and if you go back that way, that's the brake. And I've still got the brake off and unhooked, so there's nothing there, so it goes farther than it needs to. Right, so that's brake. So that's, again, that's off. Normally that's where it is, that's off. On, off, and then, like I said, brake, and it probably won't go that far. I'm going to say this is normally, well, you get the idea, up like that. So the problem is, let me take it around back. So the switch that was on the workbench, you might remember from the last video, man, so that's the drum switch. I had it put on and taken off. That's where that lever switch goes, and it connected down to here, which is that lever. Oh, all right. So this is the hokey part. So that's the handle connected down to that cast piece, and then there's this stamped steel piece, and then there's this piece of linkage, and right where my fingers touch, and it's been re-welded. And that lollipop loop went over the roller of that cam switch, which bolted onto those 3 holes right there. So that's kind of how that moved. And this is really hokey, because when you go from, let's see, so that's off, and that's on. So on, off, and brake position comes down that way. But the problem was that when it goes clockwise downwards like that, it tugs down. So you have on, I can't turn it off, but it basically pulls really hard on the mechanism. It's just a jacked up linkage. It's not set up right. Let me take you over to the switch and I'll show you what the deal is. So this is the switch. This is an Allen Bradley roller, some kind of start, stop, cam roller switch, doesn't matter. So it's currently off. That's on, off, on, off. And brake would pull it back this way. Now, what I did last night, so I'm kind of show you. This one-handed thing is really a challenge. So it turns on, it goes off, but it also goes this way. Let me stand it so I'm not so crooked here. So let's say that the lever is at 6 o'clock, and it turns on at 4 o'clock, let's say. So 6 o'clock, 4 o'clock, it would also turn on at 8 o'clock. So when you went on, off, brake, it could potentially turn back on. And you see it doesn't any longer. See, it can go all the way almost to, well, not quite 8 o'clock. Let's call it 8 o'clock. 9 o'clock would be all the way to the left. But you can see where that turns on. It used to turn on also that direction too. And that's bad because when you're putting the brakes on, it could turn the lathe on. And the way they did it is they didn't have the linkage going like this, so you have an even throw to your linkage. Because if your link is 90 degrees, if your linkage is 90 degrees to your link, you're going to go in a nice even arc, and it's going to be balanced, the motion. But the link was kind of coming down like this, at like a 20 or 30 degree angle. So what would happen is it would push it up, it would click on, but when it pulled off and it was going into brake mode, it would kind of pull it a little bit this way. And that's how it was not able to restart. If it went just a smidge more, it would click on and the lathe would turn on again when you were going to brake. But like I said, the way they manage that is they're pulling at this angle kind of down to straighten out that lever. Like I said, normally if the linkage was presented to the lever at 90 degrees, it would for sure turn the lathe on. But like I said, having the angle of that crumpled up piece of linkage down at this steep of an angle, it was very much favorable to turn on with the leverage mechanical advantage of the linkage, but very unfavorable to pull straight down. If it moved down, it would come straight in line, and it was very. I'll be honest. It was very little chance of having it click the switch on, but I just didn't like how it was, because when it actually did that and it straightened the switch out, it bent the linkage. It put the linkage in such a bending. It was like it came over 45 degrees and then down. It kind of straightened the link out where the bends were. And I know, I'm fully aware that the brakes are not on, and that's the brake part. I know that if the brakes were on, that the motion of the handle would be restricted to only like an inch or so. And there'd be no chance of pulling it straight and overextending the linkage. I get that. But this is just my brain. I didn't like the fact that when you turn the lathe into brake mode, that it would kind of inch that lever towards tripping the switch to turn the lathe on. And I also didn't like the fact that when you're going towards brake mode, if this happened to go straight, then you're putting a stretch on the linkage, and it's just not, it's kind of heading in the wrong direction. It's like driving towards the cliff, even though there's a guardrail, and even though you got good tires and your car can turn, you're still heading towards the cliff at a high rate of speed. I just didn't like it. So what I did, I said all that to say this, right? Last night I figured out, how the switch operates. Click, click, and it doesn't click in this direction anymore, and that's what I did. I modified the switch so there is no chance of having it turn on. So this is what I did. And I was out here till like midnight, couldn't sleep. Let me switch hands. Okay. So how it works, the switch will turn on like this. Okay. See there? It's like a profile, an internal profile cam. See? That little, on the top, that roller clicks over center. See where the coil spring is, that little link roller? It's got a link with a roller on it. So that turns it on. And when you go this way, when you go the opposite way, okay. See what you're seeing now is the internal cam profile to turn it on, okay? And see how far that link moves? See, that link pushes to the left. It actually goes over here inside. You can't see when it actually trips over. It kind of goes behind that, inside the body. When you go this way, it doesn't. It kind of moves a little. It stops. So, like I said, if you're looking at the cam profile, it's got a little zigzaggy shaped thing on the bottom. That's the cam profile for turning it on. Now, because the roller's right here, you're just seeing it opposite. So this profile at the top, where the red magic marker line is, and above the red magic marker line, there's that little hole at 3 o'clock, and above is that big open space. So what I did, damn it thing, I'm pointing with my finger. I ground a big area out where that red magic marker line is, okay? So it's gonna, the roller is like right where that spring attachment point is. Yeah, right. That's where the roller is, right behind the spring, right there. So when I move it this way, no actuation. So this area is going to be brake. So in brake mode, there is no chance, because I ground the cam away, that thing's going to go and turn the lathe on. I could have grounded a little more. You can see it rises up just a little bit, but it, like I said, that's turn on, that's turn off the lathe, and this is brake mode. That's brake mode. So, like I said, now I says, how am I going to do this? Well, I really don't want to take the switch apart because it's all spun riveted and such. So I'll get in there with the Dremel and well, first I didn't think not grinding out, but I had a carbide burr that I was going to say, well, metal slivers are better than grinding stone grit. So I got in there with a 1/4 inch, maybe a little less, carbide burr with my Dremel, and this thing is hard. It is hardened. It didn't sound like it liked it. So I then went with a file, and see the scratch marks on the tip of the file? The file verified that son of a joker is hard. So I had to use a grinding wheel. Actually, I had some 1/4 inch diameter round sanding discs. I figured the emery grit would be better than the aluminum oxide grit. So I did that. I got in there at the Dremel, and that red marker line, I put a washer on there, the proper diameter, and I traced it. It gave me a line to grind to that I knew would work. So, so that's what I did last night. So on, off, brake mode where it doesn't do anything. So that's kind of what I did. So now, the linkage still comes up at an angle. It kind of goes, that's just the direction that the other dealy-do is down here. So what I'm going to do, now that I've got, so the linkage doesn't pull itself and hyperextend itself, See, this has got a hearth coupling. It's got little teeth, teeth cut on the face. So hear that? So now, what I am free to do is my linkage, like I said, comes up at that funky 20, 30 degree angle. Now I can make the lever so my linkage is 90 degrees perpendicular to the lever. So what that'll allow, it'll still turn on just fine. Oops, hold on. Tighten my nut a little bit. All right. So what that, if the linkage is like this, you know, like yay, it'll allow me to go activate, you know, turn it on, turn it off, and the brake will pull down, and it's got plenty of travel to activate the brake. So on, off, brake mode. So it's not going to overstress my linkage. It's going to not pull. Basically, there's so much travel with that handle, it's limited. And once you're out of travel, it starts bending the linkage. Because this could only go so far. And now, it could only go so far before it would turn the darn machine back on, the lathe back on. Or if it hit its, you know, if the link was pulling straight on the linkage, then it would start bending the link. So by grinding that cam, it allowed for full travel without turning the lathe back on. Like I said, on, off, brake. And like I say, I'm going to reorient the link so it's now 90 degrees to the linkage instead of being, see, originally it was like this. So that is not 90 degrees to the linkage. That's like 10 degrees to the linkage. So like I said, it was favorable in order to be turning it on. It had enough throw for sure, actually more than it needed to turn it on. But to turn it off, to prevent that switch from reactivating and reclosing, the link would be pulling almost straight on the link. The linkage would be pulling almost straight on the link arm. So I just wanted to show you that. It's a lot of messing around, but there's no chance that that switch can ever turn that lathe on when you're putting the brakes on. And now that I can reorient the lever, I can reorient the link to the linkage 90 degrees, and I got the extra travel on the brake side. I'm not going to overstretch my linkage. So what I'm thinking about doing today is that old ratty linkage has been bent, screwed up, re-welded, and I want to make something a little bit, maybe with some clevises or swivel joints or something. So just wanted to show you guys that, what I've been working on with the switch and the linkage, and it came out really well. What I did is after all the grinding was done, I took it in the parts washer, you know, and I washed all the grit out, you know, blew it out, washed it out, blew it out, washed it out again, and I didn't get any grit over on the switch side, but I still washed everything out. And it's mineral spirits, you know, it's fine for electrical stuff. So that's what I've been working on last night, and I think it solved the, I guess, I don't know if it was a problem, but it made it a whole lot better, and in my mind, it's a little bit safer and less hokey how it operates. So that's that. All right, I'm back downstairs in the air conditioning here in Doozer shop. Now, this piece of linkage that you see, this bent piece of, I guess it's flat bar, that was the link from the start switch on my lathe to the handle linkage, and that thing is just a piece of junk. It was engineered very poorly.
and it really didn't work very well. It was loose, it was janky, it was unreliable. So now, let me kind of, there it is. That used to connect onto here, okay? Now we've got a piece of aluminum bar stock, and like I said, it attaches there. That lever arm rotates, and I've got a piece of linkage on there. I've got a bar and a piece of linkage on a swivel, spherical joint. Kind of take you around while I don't spill nothing. All right. Let's see here. That's a pretty good shot of the linkage. So the bar stock coming out, the bar stock coming sideways. All right. A spherical rod end. A link with the springs. And a little Z in the linkage. I had to throw the linkage over, offset it 1 inch. Okay? And there's the switch, okay? Now that lever used to be, I'm going to say it's a little past 3 o'clock in its position there. It used to be down at 6 o'clock. And the geometry was just so jacked up on this linkage. It really was. But now it works flawlessly. It turns on, it turns off. The detents, the stroke of everything lines up with the detent position of the lever. So when I click the lever on, the switch is on. When I click the lever on the front of the lathe off, the lever on the switch is right in the off detent. And when I pull it further to brake position and engage the brake rod, it will not start again because I modified the cam inside the switch. So that's what I did. I could put the camera down and activate it. It worked really well. Actually, let me do that. Let me set you down for a sec here. All right, I got the camera poised. So it's off right now. On, off. On, off. And brake goes further towards off. That's brake. Off, brake. So on, heard a click, off. On, heard the click, off, heard the click, brake, no click. No click, off. On, off. You're in the click. So that works really well. It's very smooth. It's worlds better than it was. Yeah, that's the deal. I worked a long time figuring this out. And I've been using that milling machine. I got a pile of chips, a big pile of chips, not only on the table, but on the floor in front of it to clean up. So yeah, we really, I use the heck out of this little Clausing 8520 mill. Even though I've got a bigger, many bigger mills, I still use the heck out of it. And you guys, I never maybe showed you my Atlas little drill press. But that Hamilton sure would look nice if I put it next to the Atlas in my little drilling corner. So that's that.